They thought this wouldn't be necessary, and indeed it wouldn't have been had the government's economic plans worked out as they had hoped. But today, the Chancellor of the Exchequer was obliged to tell the nation how he planned to save a further massive amount of money, £11.5 billion in total. We'll speak to the Education Secretary, Michael Gove, about it shortly. But we begin our coverage tonight with our political editor, Allegra Stratton.
You thought this morning you woke up in 2013, but get with the programme, or at least get with Newsnight. Lift your eyes up and over to the horizon of the first year of the next Parliament. Daybreak in April 2015 will see the skyline of these government departments shrunken and the state smaller. This is why.
We've always believed that the deficit mattered, that we needed to take tough decisions to deal with our debts, and the opposition to that has collapsed into incoherence too. Today I announce the next stage of our economic plan to turn Britain around. Mr. Speaker.
But hold on, didn't we have a clear plan for getting rid of the deficit already? In 2010, the government thought they could eliminate the structural deficit by 2014-15, like this. But economic growth did not transpire, and so they need even more cuts to get back on track. This is the revised timetable to eliminate the structural deficit by 2018. To hit this target, the government needs to find £11.5 billion of additional cuts in the year 2015, which is why we're here today.
We have applied three principles to the spending round I set out today. Reform, to get more from every pound we spend. Growth, to give Britain the education, enterprise and economic infrastructure it needs to win the global race. And fairness, making sure we are all in it together.
New free schools, a social care package and bold claims on infrastructure, these all allow him to claim the progressive mantle. But there were plenty of sizable cuts. Local government, transport, environment, work and pensions, and even an example-setting treasury, all hit by around 10%. The clear winners were those departments with ring-fenced budgets. Health, international development and education getting away virtually scot-free. In the run-up to this process, many cabinet ministers kicked up. They really did not want deep cuts to their department, and they were so virulent about it they even got nicknamed the National Union of Ministers. Now, in the round, when we look at what cuts departments have taken, actually it does seem that those who shouted loudest might have had the blade blunted. At the Ministry of Defence, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. The overall budget does continue to fall, but there's no further cuts to armed forces personnel. And the security and intelligence agencies even got a 3.4% increase. At Vince Cable's department, their cut was 5.9%, but again, George Osborne bought the pitch that the business department is a growth department, so science and apprenticeships were relatively protected. Over at the Home Office, cuts were also deep at 6%, but again, they could have been deeper. The policing budget, already down 20%, now faces the prospect of another cut, but it will be less than the 6% figure. Elsewhere, Ministry of Justice, Foreign Office, DEFRA, they all saw truly deep cuts. Perhaps their ministers hadn't been so vocal.
The increasing level of realism about the state of the UK public finances is continues to grow. George Osborne just toughened his position again. The next government will toughen again in 2015. You know, finally we're seeing the kind of decisions that we've been waiting for about 5 years now.
But the big surprise of the day was that the Welfare Department, which had been deemed too politically sensitive for any more cutting, it did get further cuts. So now there will be a new 7-day waiting period for those who need unemployment benefits, and those who don't have functional English have now been told that they must learn English or lose their benefits. Neither of these are massive revenue raisers for the government, but they're symbolically potent. And from next year's budget, the Office for Budget Responsibility will monitor Britain's new welfare cap. All we know after today is that it will apply to welfare spending over £100 billion. And while it leaves out the state pension, it targets housing benefit, disability benefit and tax credits. Their cost is currently stuck at around £112 billion. This makes possibly as much as £12 billion of welfare spending vulnerable. And with that graph, we now know much more about the entirety of the next Parliament. That bit of welfare spending that is above £100 billion is now fair game for cutting. It could be that politicians go into the next election pledging that they will get rid of some £10 billion of welfare spending. To put that into context, in the last Parliament we've seen £18 billion. Nearly the same magnitude is on the horizon. To showcase its new fiscal discipline, Labour agreed with the Chancellor's headline spending cuts, but it still went on the attack.
This out-of-touch Chancellor has failed on living standards growth and the deficit, and families and businesses are paying the price for his failure.
Over that horizon, not actually that far away, at the next election, Labour intends to pledge fiscal discipline alongside massive infrastructure investment. The government knows this, and tomorrow will announce something similar. A general election may be many moons away, but positioning for it is dominating every waking hour in Whitehall.
Well, Allegra and our economics editor Paul Mason are both with us now. What was the standout political issue for you?
The standout political issue, the broad picture-wise, the reason I say I think he dominated or dictated the terms of the next general election is that this is a man who actually stood up today and announced what he announced in terms of extra cuts today because his own plan hadn't worked. But even though his own plan hadn't worked, he still has managed to get the Labour Party and indeed the Liberal Democrat Party to agree to the figures that we just went through in that package. So the standout sort of broad political theme and moment of today is that this could have been a moment of ignominy for him, but actually I think his stature in his own party's increased, and he had to actually put the numbers on that 2015 general election. And
what do we learn about going forward in the government's management of the economy?
Well, Jeremy, when Labour left office, Liam Byrne, the Treasury Secretary, left famously a note saying, I have to tell you, there is no money left. I think this was a kind of note to the next government, whoever it is, saying there are no cuts left. There are no cuts left to do of the kind we've been doing for 3, 4, and it will be 5 years by the end of the Parliament. That is ring-fenced health, ring-fenced education, paring away at departments. If you look at the 11.5 billion, 5 billion of it is efficiency savings. Now, while the government has provided a handy list of things that might happen and some case studies of stuff that is happening, it has not given a list of where that 5 billion comes from. We know that 2 billion of it is going to come from local government. Even the big headline about stopping public sector workers getting automatic increments. The Education Secretary, who you're about to speak to, has abolished it by fiat in his department, but the health service of something like 1 million workers can't do that. They're going to link it more closely to performance and seek further reforms. Well, that's where that 5 billion is, some of that 5 billion is coming from. So they are really at the bottom of the barrel of this kind of cut.
But there is another kind of cut, which is the big specific political moment, not the thematic one, which is this new welfare cut that we've been talking about on this programme for some 6 months now. The cut to Amy, which is such a terrible phrase, we try not to mention it, but there really isn't any better shorthand. Welfare, so far, hitherto, it's been allowed to just go up with demand, and it means that it does go up unchecked. Today, they set out for the first time that not the exact cap, but that it will be targeted at all spending above 100 billion. Now, in the graph we showed in the piece, it shows that right now, it's been stuck for a few years at 112. So do the math. It's not difficult. Gap. It's 12 billion. So this is the significance of this. I'm not saying that the government will go into the next election, or rather the Conservatives, because the Liberal Democrats will not be wholly comfortable with this, going in saying we'll cut 12 billion, but they might do. That is the extreme of what they could argue to cut.
And going forward, Paul?
Well, for me, this was the moment in this Parliament where you saw almost the future shape of and I say this for a reason, a conservative Britain. It might be a coalition budget, but the Chancellor is a conservative. It was a conservative speech. I think the speech mattered. And it wasn't the subtext, but the absolute core of it was, look, we have done austerity without tanking the economy. We've got the opposition to sign up to most of the austerity we now know about going forward. Britain's businesses and the workforce has accepted pay cuts, businesses have innovated, they've created jobs. That part of the narrative, up to now, we don't know what happens going forward, but up to now, has happened. And I think it was that gave, both front-bench politicians were on a roll, but one felt for the first time Osborne was on a roll on an agenda that he felt very comfortable with.
OK, thank you very much, both of you. Well, with us now, the Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Chris Leslie. We'll be speaking to him in a moment or two. Also with us, the Education Secretary, Michael Gove. This is what you call efficient management of the economy, is it?
Well, I think it's a series of decisions which will ensure that the taxpayer gets a better deal, that the services that people properly expect the government to provide will be protected, and across government we're making sure that we deliver the services more efficiently and effectively.
But it's only 2 years since we were told by your esteemed leaders that these further cuts would not be necessary.
Yes, and since then we've had catastrophic economic conditions in the Eurozone, who are our major trading partners. When the facts change, then we have to change in order to deal with that. And one of the things that we've had to acknowledge is that the rate of growth that the Independent Office of Budget Responsibility predicted would happen hasn't happened. The responsible thing to do in those circumstances is to make sure that you still carry on with the deficit reduction strategy, but take it slightly more slowly than you otherwise would have done. And that is a view which I think most independent observers believe is the prudent way to approach. And it's certainly a point of view that the Labour Party has finally come to accept, despite its initial scepticism and obduracy.
That means that any predictions made today are equally worthless, doesn't it?
Well, there are a series of predictions that were made that were worthless, and those were the predictions from the Labour Party. That,
let's not talk about Labour. Let's talk about your management of the economy.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. One of the things is that we've had a million private sector jobs created.
Sure.
Now, we were told that if you cut at the level that George Osborne's going to cut, those jobs would not be created.
All right, well, let's look.
Now, that is an economic achievement. We were also told at the same time that if we were going to cut spending in the Home Office, that crime would increase with devastating economic impact.
That
it hasn't.
When you made the predictions in 2011, you did not see what you say has made today's further cuts, necessary.
Well,
it follows from that, does it not, that you are equally unable to be a clairvoyant now as you were then?
Well, I certainly wouldn't claim that I have the gift of second sight. But what I do have is the capacity to be able to recognise that when you do have turbulence of the kind that we've faced in the Eurozone, when you do have the impact that global economic factors have had on our shores,
don't know
then
what's
you do.
Gonna happen.
Yeah, but the key thing is the predictions that were made about the future were made by the Office of Budget Responsibility, which is an independent body that we created. So they're not George Osborne's figures; they're the figures of a group of people who operate with a degree of authority.
The claims that these cuts would not be necessary were George Osborne's. They were not the Office of Budget Responsibility.
Well, they're the people who produce the growth figures, aren't they, Jeremy?
Can you tell us then whether these £350 million worth of cuts to welfare are the last word on welfare cuts?
No, by definition,
no,
they're
you
not.
Can't. Of course,
you can't, haven't we? And the key point about the cap is that we will ensure that if in the future any government feels that it's appropriate to increase welfare spending, they will have to come to the House of Commons and explain why, or they're going to have to think hard about how housing benefit and other benefits are allocated.
Sure.
So it may well be the case in the future, if we're fortunate enough to have a Conservative or Conservative-led government re-elected, that we will have more efficiency in welfare. Labour can't make that promise.
So there could be further cuts. The question of the £100 billion cap.
Well, I think everyone recognises that immediately after 2015-16, there are going to have to be, whichever party's in power, there are going to have to be spending disciplines. I don't think anyone is saying that immediately after 2015-16,
everyone's in favour of discipline.
Nirvana will return.
Everyone's in favour of discipline, but you say there will be a cap. This word has been bandied about all day. What exactly does
Not
that...
bandied about, used with precision.
Oh, with precision. How exactly will this cap work?
Well, pensions and job seekers allowance will not be covered by it,
Sure.
but other parts of the welfare budget will be managed in the same way as other departmental budgets are managed. And that means that in areas like, you asked me to explain, I'll try my best, and that means that in areas like, for example, disability benefit or in housing benefit, that there will be an absolute total which the government can't spend.
What is this cap?
Well, it'll be around 100 million.
OK, and supposing you exceed it?
Well, you have to... the Chancellor was very clear, Jeremy. He said that if, for any reason, a government feels that they have to exceed it, they have to come to the House of Commons and to explain why, but the responsibility will be on them to do what the last government
sit on the naughty step or something?
Well, I mean,
there's no sanction here at all.
Well, there is a self-imposed discipline, and it will be a significant thing to do, having erected a cap, not to stick to it. And it will be a significant penalty that any minister will face.
What is this penalty? He has to make a statement at the House of Commons.
Well, he has to explain why it is that he's taking things differently.
That's a penalty, is it?
Well, sometimes it certainly is, considering some of the people you find in the House of Commons. But anyway, the particular thing about the welfare cap is that it's placing the Department of Work and Pensions under the same degree of discipline that I face in the Department for Education or elsewhere. We have budgets that we have to meet. It is the case that we have to manage that expenditure. So we can't simply allow it to let rip. And one of the problems with the mismanagement of the welfare budget under previous governments is that it was allowed to let rip without this degree of discipline being imposed. And more than that, it's also entirely ingrained with some of the other changes that George Osborne has introduced today, which will incentivise people who want to work. So, for example, we're not going to have a situation whereby people can turn up at a job centre and then demand their benefits first without producing hard evidence that they're putting job seeking first, producing that CV, making sure that they learn English if they don't have it, and making sure, for example, if they've taken some time off to raise a child, that they're then serious about getting back to work.
We'll leave aside the question of why it's taking you so long to get around to that, and just deal with this one question.
Well, I don't think you can say the government's been idle over the last 3 years. I don't think you can say that torpor has gripped those of us
You appear only just to have noticed this discrepancy. But let's deal with the 12 billion. There's a difference between 100 billion, which is supposedly the cap, and 112 billion, which you're currently running at. What are you going to cut?
Well, one of the things that we need to do is to make sure, and we're already doing so, that eligibility to housing benefit is tackled. One of the things that we've been prepared to do, for example, is to remove the spare room subsidy. Labour opposed that. One of the things that we've been prepared to do is to look again at how certain disability and incapacity benefits are allocated. Labour have opposed that. At every turn, when we've been prepared to reform the welfare state in order to incentivise work, Labour have stood on the sidelines, objected, played to the gallery, and now they come like repentant sinners saying that they will exercise that degree of discipline.
I wasn't asking
credibility.
Look, Chris Leslie, the Shadow Chief Secretary here, he can speak for himself in a moment or two. And that jolly nice one. We'll come to you in a moment or two if you'll forgive us. You can tell us what you're going to do.
I've already told you some of the things that we are doing.
You've given us a long disquisition on what you claim that Labour would or wouldn't do.
But that's the point of democracy, Jeremy. There are alternatives, and I've explained to you exactly what it is that we've been doing. Changes to housing benefit, changes to disability and incapacity benefit. Right. And of course, one of the things about the way in which Ian Duncan-Smith and Nick Clegg have worked together is that we've ensured that those who are genuinely in need continue to receive the support that they deserve, but those people, and there are some, who are using the welfare system as an alternative to work, the game's up.
Do you think any other departments can be cut any further?
Yes.
Which ones?
Well, that's a matter for the Chancellor, but I wouldn't want to usurp his position.
No,
you can always look for further
economies. What about your
department? Well, we are making some economies, and I think that...
Do you think you could be cut further?
I think it is the case that we could be more efficient, yes. Let me give you one specific example. Yeah. We have protected the school's budget. Labour said that we'd never be able to do it. We've succeeded.
But at the same time... You promised to do it, didn't you? Wasn't it a condition of you being elected?
Well, I think we were elected for a whole host of reasons, but we've managed to keep that promise in a way that perhaps some other promises that previous governments made have been dishonoured. But within that budget, it is undoubtedly the case that the money can be spent more efficiently and effectively. There are inefficiencies in the way in which some schools and indeed other educational institutions spend their money. It's also the case that within my own department, there are inefficiencies which we've driven out, problems that we inherited, that we've...
Are there any inefficiencies still to be driven out of your department?
Yes, but thanks to the brilliant work of my permanent secretary, we're proceeding at pace to do that. I'm really fortunate that I have in Chris Wormald, one of the most gifted people in the civil service, who's going to reduce the size of the DFE's central spend by 50%.
All right.
A big cut well delivered.
Michael Gove, thank you very much. Now, Chris says you're accepting all these figures, are you, as targets? I mean, effectively, we've seen the state of the 2015 budget now, haven't we?
Well, on the proviso that there's nothing to be done in the 2 years before then to stimulate growth and maybe stave off some of the need for these cuts. I mean, obviously, Jeremy,
well,
you know
in
an ideal world, we'd have had a government that would have actually used today as an occasion to stimulate and kickstart the economy, which would actually mitigate the need for some of these cuts. But if it looks as though they're carrying on regardless, as it sounded as though from the Education Secretary, they don't think anything can be done about the economy, then of course it looks like the next government will inherit a pretty bleak inheritance, yes.
In the possibility, which I suppose we must accept, that you form the next government, you will be operating a budget according to these guidelines, will you?
Well, for day-to-day spending, yes. And of course that's going to have to be the starting point. I mean, we would have totally different priorities from this government, particularly when it comes to things, for example, on welfare. They're intending
what would you be cutting instead?
Well, I was just going to say, they're intending to give a winter allowance to the wealthiest 5% of pensioners, for example.
Well, they're taking it away from people who live in the tropics.
Well, you know, that's, of course, an easy one to do. I don't know why the government are waiting until 2015 to say those with retirement incomes of £42,000 and above, they really shouldn't be getting that winter allowance. There's a free schools programme where the Education Secretary is looking to start new free schools in areas where they already have ample unfilled spare places. That's completely wasteful. So
now, the Education Secretary has also told us there could be some efficiencies to come in his department. What other departments do you think could be cut?
Well, I mean, I think what we've got to do is first of all focus on getting the economy growing, and this is a very big divide in the. This is a very big divide between the political
being
parties.
Made now are actually followed.
Wave the white flag and assume nothing can be done about something in 2 years' time? You heard the Education Secretary earlier on saying it was all the fault of the Eurozone, it was all the fault of the Office for Budget Responsibility. But they could do something about growth, and they won't.
Happen, so let's assume, for the sake of argument, since none of us can see the future, let's assume that their predictions are right. And let's assume, for the sake of argument, that you win the next election. Are there government departments that could be further cut?
Of course there are savings.
Okay, what are they?
For a start, we think it's a question whether there should be more money spent on police commissioners, for example, than on the existing police authorities.
How much is that going to save you?
Well, we don't want to have a millionaire's tax cut. We think that would be the wrong priority. We wouldn't have been reorganising the NHS, spending £3 billion on a top-down change that nobody voted for and nobody wanted. There are priorities, there are changes that can be made.
There are
that,
further
I think,
economies
is where we have
made in departments.
But we don't want to get into that situation.
Well, nobody wants to be in the situation where you have to cut.
They don't need to be in this situation.
Do you want to cut public spending?
That's ideologically.
Of course he doesn't want to cut public spending.
But the surprising thing, though, is that Chris, you're absolutely right, Jeremy. Chris talks about historic things, and Chris has every right to disagree with them. But Chris cannot mention a single programme that we are investing in that he would cut.
What about the winter allowance then?
Well,
I just
how much does that raise?
Why wouldn't you do it?
It's a tiny sum, isn't it?
Why wouldn't you do it?
Okay, but it's a tiny sum.
Why wouldn't you do it?
How much? What else would you cut?
What is wrong with making that change for the wealthiest pensioners on winter allowance? Why wouldn't you do it? Tell me why.
Well, let's do a single transferable spending.
Tell me why.
I mean,
would you do it?
You've used it to pay for almost everything.
Look, what about the millionaire's tax cut then? Why is that a priority? Why is it a priority? You're laughing about this. This is incredibly serious. We've got cuts that are going to be hitting people exceptionally hardly, Michael. This is not a laughing matter. You have the opportunity to stave these off if you focus on growth.
I'm afraid I wasn't laughing. It was Jeremy who was laughing.
What was in the plan today to stimulate growth? Nothing. This was a neglectful decision by the Chancellor. He's completely neglected his responsibilities to the economy.
The CBI, I think, pointed out that actually this was a very good budget for growth, didn't they?
No, I think what they said is that they should have got their diggers moving on construction and stimulated capital investment now. And of course that's being cut in education.
Right,
it's being cut.
We're going to stop this end of the Pier Show now. Thank you both very much.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks for coming. Now, you may not have noticed the announcement today that the cost of High Speed 2's potential charge overall rose by more than a mere £10 billion. The creation of a high-speed rail line from London to the north of England will, say the government, produce quantifiable economic benefits to the region. Today, the Transport Secretary, Patrick McLaughlin, told MPs that the new projected cost of the rail line linking London to the Midlands had risen to £42.6 billion from the original estimate of £33 billion and included a contingency fund.
But I know that in the context of the bill, the House will want to be updated on the cost of HS2. I can therefore tell the House that I will be writing tomorrow to the chairman of HS2 Limited to set a target price for delivering phase 1 of the project. That amount is £17 billion at 2011 prices. This takes account of the design and environmental changes to improve the scheme. These changes include a tunnel from Old Oak Common to Northolt, design changes at Euston Station, and a tunnel under the M6 near Birmingham. As a responsible government, we must be prudent, and that means allowing the right level of contingency. In addition, therefore, we have set an overall indicative amount for the budget for phase 1, and that is £21.4 billion. For phase 2, it is £21.2 billion, a total of £42.6 billion at 2011 prices. That includes, can I just finish this one point, if I may? That includes a £12.7 billion of contingency.
Right. Now, can you explain, as a fellow Conservative MP, why your party is so keen on this project?
Well, it's a project we've inherited from the Labour Party, Lord Adonis. I think, personally, it's a Trojan horse of a project, rather like the 50p tax, and I can't explain why they're in favour of it. Today it's gone up by £10 billion. It's roaring through my constituency, causing blight, fear and anxiety, planning paralysis, and going to go increasingly over budget.
So you've no idea why all these people on whose side of the House you sit, who are all kindred spirits, why they're all so enthusiastic for it?
There's a lot of political capital in all the parties being put behind this project, and this is going to take, the increase in the budget now is going to take this project probably past the next general election without requiring any further funding.
The figures are extraordinary. I mean, this was an increase today of, what, about £10 billion in the contingency fund? Absolutely,
and on top of that £42.6 billion, you've also got £7.5 billion for the rolling stock, which will also be increasing in price as well. So the whole project's now risen to somewhere in excess of £50 billion, and based in 2011 money. This project is going to hit £100 billion if it went through.
The government says, of course, it won't go any higher.
The history of large infrastructure projects in rail in particular, if you look on the continent internationally, they normally rise by about 45%, but I think there's a specific danger with this project because it's a 20-year lead time.
Maybe it's worth it for the number of jobs that'll be created. I mean, an estimated 20,000 or so.
I think that's a fallacy. If you actually look in constituencies like mine, it's mostly businesses' premises that they put the route through, and 30% of the businesses who would be affected have more or less said that they wouldn't bother relocating. They'll just take the package for payout as a retirement fund, and those jobs will be lost. It's actually going to cost lots of jobs.
How far does this opposition to HS2 extend in your party?
Well, there are people who are affected it by the route, and they're going to represent their constituents, as I do in North West Leicestershire. That's what we're here for. And there are then people who are increasingly going to be concerned about the cost, and that's going to continue to escalate.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, we've taken a very close interest in this story, and doubtless we'll spend the next 20 years doing likewise. But thank you very much.
Thank you.